During this video segment, I will show you how to import or upload your constituent data into your DonorTrack account. So I'm in DonorTrack, and this is typically something that's done by brand new organizations. So your system's probably going to be fairly empty. It's done under Admin, Import Constituents, and it's a quick way to upload your data. If you have your data already in another form database, what you'll want to do is you'll want to get that data into an Excel file, and you're going to want to make sure your data is in the format described here. And it looks pretty ominous, but it's not too bad. As you notice, there's a lot of fields in our database, but there's only a couple here that you have to enter. And that's what that red asterisk indicates, that it is a required field. And so here's an example of an Excel file that I prepared that's all ready for uploading. And notice that the data here matches up. So let's just look at this real closely together. So column A is the first name, and every row has to have a first name. You cannot upload this file. If we upload this file right now, this particular user would not get added. It is required. The next field is last name. The next field is the maiden name. And notice that for my particular upload here, let's make this file just a little, or screen a little bit smaller. Notice that I don't have anything in there. I don't have any maiden names for my data right now, which is fine. If you do, then some of these would have items, others wouldn't. Even though I don't have any maiden names, I still need to put a blank column in so that when I upload it, it recognizes that I don't have any maiden names. Okay, so even though you don't have any data, C still has to be a placeholder for that. So just leave it empty, that's fine. The next item over is the email address, and it looks like I have a lot of email addresses. In fact, all of them do, which probably is not very realistic. If you don't, that's okay. This would be fine if you uploaded this file in this format. It just won't have email addresses, but notice there's no red asterisk, it's not required. And then we can kind of work our way through. Notice that in my data, it looks like I have columns E, F, G, H, I, J, K all empty, which is fine. That means I don't have marital statuses, date of births, anniversaries, whether they're deceased, notes, education, employment, and so forth. It does look like L I have, which is the primary address. So that is their address. They can have a secondary address as well. That's typically going to be for like a seasonal address, because notice for the secondary address you have a from and a to. So it might be from 03/15, which would be March 15, until 10/15, which would be October 15. They'll be at that address instead. But that is not required. Notice I don't have secondary addresses, so I left that all off. And continuing across, you'll notice that I also have in my file for column Z, where is Z? Right there. Looks like I have phone numbers. Yep, that looks like a phone number. And then once we get to AA, now we start getting into the spouse information. So notice some of these have spouse names, some don't, probably because they're married or not married. And then it doesn't look like I did much with a spouse other than their first name. If you have children, you can incorporate that in your upload as well. But again, I would not enter data into here if you don't have it already. I would instead enter the children into DonorTrack itself. Just do that, within once you have them uploaded. So don't create new data, but you do want to accommodate all the data that you currently have. And then notice, this is important. BH was the last child, but then BI, important, it is a filler. It's a required field. And what you need to do is just put a small case X, like it says here, for every record. So every row in that field. And what that does is when I upload this person, it'll come all the way through, enter all the data. When it sees this X, it says, okay, that's the last information for this person, the next data that we see in the upload is going to be for a brand new person. So it's important that you have that I in there. One other thing to note is, notice in the top column here, or top row, I don't have any headers information like first name, last name, and hopefully it says it in here. I believe it does. Yeah, make sure the columns in the Excel sheet are in the correct order. Here it talks about if you want the marital statuses. I wouldn't worry about that, to be honest. It doesn't look like it says it, but ultimately you don't want to have your rows, your first row, have the header information. If you do, just right click and then delete those out. I didn't, so I'll bring that back in again. It says make sure you save it as an Excel file. So this is an older Excel file or a new Excel file. And then it's saying if you already have data in the software, how do you want to match it up? Because you don't want to have duplicates if they're already in here. So it's saying, do you want to look at the constituents and match up their first name and their last name and their birth date if one exists? In other words, if I upload someone with this name right here, Tim Elkema, and Tim Elkema is already in here and they have the same birth date, I wouldn't upload this one because I'd recognize they're already in here. However, if I didn't, if those didn't match up, then it would upload that. Match up constituents by first name, last name, and which class they are. So like class of 2015. Match up first name, last name, and the address. The one thing to keep in mind here, though, is the addresses have to match up perfect. So if you said, 115 South Main in donor track, but then in my upload it said 115 S dot space Main, it would see those as two separate records. And then the last option is do not match up any constituents. Just pull it all in here once again, and then we'll deal with it after the fact. If this is just your first upload and you don't have constituents already in donor track, it really doesn't matter which option you use. However, if you do, then you want to be a little more cautious and decide what you're going to use. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this one. And notice there's a template here, by the way. I should have mentioned that. If you want to use this, what that does is it kind of creates a template and it shows you all the fields so that you can kind of just make sure it matches that template. I'll close that again. And then I'm going to go ahead and browse to find the file. So here's our constituent upload. And then, okay, here I missed this earlier. I'm sorry. My file has a row header. So remember how I took it out, or mine didn't, so I can take that out. If you check this, you could leave it in there actually. So let's go ahead and import the constituents. It says uploading, please wait. And it says 69 of these were not imported. Well, there was a lot of them here. So there's my data, and you can check it against your results. This now concludes this instructional video on how to import or upload your constituents.